Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit. I'm Jer Stays. Today's show from Monday, August 4th, 2025, features a conversation with U.S. Representative and Democratic primary candidate for U.S. Senate, Haley Stevens. Representing the 11th District since 2019, she represents Ferndale, Royal Oak, Birmingham, Farmington Hills, Pontiac, Wixom, White Lake, Troy, Auburn Hills, and more. It is one of the most powerful and economically important areas of the state and our country. Plus, many of you, our listeners, live there. We touched on a ton of topics. My goal was to get a sense of what her thoughts were over my own. After all, she's in the seat and running for a higher one in a contested primary. Feedback, as always, dailydetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211. Welcome to Detroit's living room here at Daily Detroit.
I am thrilled to be in this living room on this beautiful day, by the way.
It is a gorgeous one here in Michigan, isn't it?
Yeah, we're nailing it today.
Yeah. This is the time to be in state, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sayonara, Washington.
And yet you're trying to stay there.
See you later, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
There you go. That's very fair. Well, there's a ton of things I want to talk to you about. The first thing that a lot of people are going to be interested in is the automotive industry. Okay. There's been a raft of tariffs. There have been a lot of bad job numbers lately. I know from my coverage that in a lot of ways, tariffs hurt small manufacturers a lot. There's been a lot of challenges with that. So how are you feeling about all of this from your position, not only as a rep today, but the evolving role if you were to become U.S. Senator?
Look, erratic tariffs, 55 tariff announcements in the first 100 days, announcements still coming down. We woke up to another one from the president this morning on Canada. It's truly wreaking havoc on our consumers, on our small businesses. We need certainty, and we also are experiencing some pretty aggressive and immediate ramifications. This is one of the reasons I'm running for U.S. Senate, to be honest with you, because we see all these deals being cut with other countries. Where's the deal for Michigan? Why has our state been not ratcheting up its unemployment? Why are we seeing disinvestment in manufacturing? And I'm not just talking about corporate job loss or profit loss, and job loss is obviously terrible. I'm talking about the small to mid-sized manufacturer like Detroit Axle that has now had to shutter one of their operations. Just today, I was with Alpha USA. It's a great, almost 70-year-old company, UAW employees, and they're telling me how much they're losing out to tariffs and how much it's threatening their business. And it's head-scratching. It's frankly an insult to those of us in Michigan who are tied to the industrial economy and for those who work in it.
I know that you worked, if I'm correct, on the Obama work with the automotive industry, right? Some years ago.
Yeah. In his first term, I was chief of staff to Steve Ratner on the U.S. Auto Rescue. And that was a surreal endeavor, to say the least. It was saving General Motors and Chrysler, literally. I mean, think about it. General Motors in bankruptcy was spoken in a sentence. Hundreds of thousands of direct Michigan jobs. I was the one taking those phone calls as the person from Michigan on the team from folks back home. And it was painful. It was horrible.
What is something that you learned then that you're using now?
Well, certainly how to make sure people know that they have a voice in me and how to actually represent. So to go back to taking those phone calls from people who were scared, it started with listening. And my approach to public service is to listen, to learn, and to lead in that order. And as someone who, when we're in legislative session, is out in the nation's capital during the work week, I am carrying the needs, the wants, the aspirations, the hope, telling the amazing story that's pumping out of Michigan and Metro Detroit and Detroit, because there's a lot of positive things happening here. But it is my job to listen to people. And so that's what I got on the auto rescue, how to just listen to individual people, workers who called in, small business owners who called in, but then also stakeholders as well, the role that our mayors play in good and successful policy making. That's why, as someone who represents 25 communities now, I do all my work and my best work through our cities and our municipalities, really taking my cues from the bottom up.
You know, you're talking about local, and I can't help but think of the time that I interviewed former Senator Carl Levin.
Wow, yeah.
It was just before he passed on, and really talking about the importance of how to connect Washington to Michigan. And as senator, you would have a much wider remit than the 25 communities. You know, inspired by kind of that conversation I had with him, I want to ask, like, how would you view bringing not just resources, but I mean, dollars, resources, all kinds of things to Michigan, because there's so many things that we do need. You know, here in Metro Detroit, our audience cares a lot about things like mass transit, right? When you have things like mass transit or roads or all that's tied to federal money. So being a U.S. Senator would be like a very key position in that. So what are your thoughts around some of that?
Well, let me answer this in a twofold way. The first fold of this, because I'm on the Daily Detroit, is Detroit needs a senator, and I want to be Detroit senator. I want to be connected to our neighborhoods, our community centers, the incredible stakeholders, the thinking that's going on here, like you just mentioned, with mass transport and some of the movement of the city into the quarter 21st century economy and needs and all of that. I want to be not only the listening ear, but the active lawmaker alongside the people of Detroit, and having a little bit of fun with them too, because this is like Motown and there's a lot, the spirit of Detroit. But the other side of what you're asking me, which is something I also feel very strongly about, given that I'm in the U.S. House of Representatives. I was just named the most effective Democratic lawmaker for the state of Michigan, one of the most effective lawmakers in the Democratic caucus. And that's because I actually like doing the job. I like identifying problems and presenting solutions. It's a lawmaking job. I like to help write legislation and help make the government work for people. In the United States Senate, we will have 2 people from Michigan, 2 out of 100. It is a chief deal-making role for our state. It is not just telling our story, but it is ensuring that what goes on there, we are heard. And this is what's playing out with tariffs right now. It's hurting us first and hardest. It just is. We don't need a doom and gloom. There's a whole lot of resiliency here. I don't want negativity, but on the other hand, I've got to be realistic about what these policies are doing. And as a senator, you get more tools in your toolkit to say, you know what, guys? You know what, Trump administration? If you're playing this game, I'm going to play a game, which is I'm not voting for your stuff. And I'm going to hold things up until we can cut a better deal for Michigan. The last several pieces of legislation that I got done in the previous term in Congress, that legislation on quantum, on privacy-enhancing technologies, stuff that all these AI geeks want, it was held up by Ted Cruz. So the other thing is in addition to being a now co-equal voice with the 2 senators from Texas and the 2 from Maine and the 2 from California, is that I get to throw Michigan's weight around. We have shrunk in terms of our representation. We're down to 13 House members. We're the 10th largest state in the union. There's somewhat of a structural challenge to our system of government right now in that regard. And I certainly have some questions about the Senate, but I want to do my damnedest to make it work for our state and our people.
Yeah, I could go off onto an entire tangent how I believe we need more House representatives, but that is a completely different podcast.
Well, you should take a look at my bill on that front too. We'll do that next time.
Because I think it's very difficult from a perspective of being a representative. I mean, each representative in Michigan represents more people than are in the city of Detroit. I mean, just each district is so large now. But that is a structural question possibly for another day. You know, one challenge that I think Democrats in general are going to have is that polls are a little bit against you guys right now. Like a recent Gallup survey shows that 63% unfavorable rating in Gallup for Democrats right now. You're somebody who's been in office for a while. How do you look to change that?
Well, I think my receipts and track record speaks for itself, and my career and my life's work has been defined by putting up my hand for Michigan in these tough moments. To go back to the work that I did in the Obama administration, it was, if I'm going to do one thing, I've got to do something for Michigan in the Obama administration. then flipping a House seat from red to blue, a seat that voted for Donald Trump and then turned around and voted for me. And then getting things done. The minute I got into that job, if it was helping constituents who had issues before the federal government, or if it was passing my first piece of legislation before my 1-year anniversary, or my first year in the Congress, and then also helping to champion the CHIPS and Science legislation. And so Haley Stevens likes to help. I want to help. I have the heart of a public servant, and I want to be Michigan's top public servant in this moment. And this unique moment, Jared, this has to do with so much more than just political party. It has to do with the unique coalitions that are going to come together to elect our next senator. It's about cutting through the noise and reaching people and directly hearing from them and then meeting them where they're at. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why I'm fired up about my Senate run. And, I'm just kicking off a Made in Michigan tour right here with you.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I mean, you're a bright person. Why politics? So many people look at politics and they go, absolutely not, right? So why do this? You could do a lot of other things, Haley.
You know what? I love helping people. I really do. I love people. I love hearing their stories. I love the state of Michigan. I love telling Michigan's story, and I like working hard. And look, the Obamas talked about this a lot, that it's so easy to get cynical, and we can't let cynicism win the day. And look, we could be talking about prior elections, but I am looking forward. I am thinking about the future. I'm looking squarely in the face that we're now at the quarter 21st century mark here in the state of Michigan. What does this place look like in the mid-century mark? We know how quickly these decades go, Jer, and we want to make sure that the vibrancy of our innovation, our ingenuity here in this state and in this incredible city is continuing to lead the world, whether that's on infrastructure challenges, new mobility solutions, educational outcomes. We're in a renovating moment. See, we bored the first stretch of highway for the entire country. We had the first electric stop light in the country here. And we yet still churn out so many patents, so many new small businesses. And the kids here are dreaming, they're doing, they're engaging in their community. And we want to continue to invest in that, which is why that first piece of legislation I did in my first year in Congress was called the Building Blocks of STEM Act, to ensure that we've got science, technology, engineering, and mathematics invested in a continual way throughout a child's educational career.
Well, as a geriatric millennial,
there we go.
I am very familiar with that feeling that decades start to speed up a little bit. You were mentioning about changes at the mid-century, 2050, something like that. One major change that I can think about in the last 20 years in Michigan's demographics is we have, frankly, the largest Arab American community in America, right? And there are a lot of hot button issues around that. How do you face some of that in a very turbulent world? Because as a senator, as you said, it's like a much bigger position than being in the House, right? The Senate deals with international relations a lot more. Mm-hmm. So how do you view this line you're going to have to walk? Because last election, there's a lot of people who stayed home over it, honestly, Well,
one of the things that we've got to recognize is that the rich diversity that coexists here in Michigan and in and around the Metro Detroit area is a complete and total asset. It is why we are the unique place that we are. This is why we are a hub, an international destination in our own right, a place where businesses like Mahindra come to expand. And Mahindra came from India. We also have a very strong Asian American population. My previous district used to be the largest concentration of Indian Americans of any congressional district in the country. And I've learned so much from our Indian American community, and I'm thrilled to be endorsed by Hindus for America in my run for United States Senate, even in these early days. But I've also learned a lot from our Arab community and the business leadership, first generation people who came here with maybe not a lot, and built something from it, or who did come here with a strong educational background and were able to contribute to our medical community. And we see in our hospitals all sorts of diversity and ethnicities represented. But in terms of some of the issues that have maybe been thrown at us that are dividing people, the best I can do is be transparent. It's about being transparent and promoting civil dialogue, civil and respectful dialogue. You end up taking on a lot of people's frustrations in this line of work. And I recognize that as a House member, again, going from the 800,000 people to the whole big state of Michigan at 10.8. That's a different set of juggling. But I value and I champion the diversity of this state and all that the Arab American community affords us.
So do you have a position kind of mapped out on like international relations, Israel, Gaza, or is that something you're still working on?
No, look, I have a record, and I'm certainly not running for my record. And in terms of this horrible ongoing war, everyone needs to know that I want to see this war come to an end. I think that's something that we can all agree to, that we need to see a permanent and lasting ceasefire, dignity for people in Gaza. It has been heartbreaking and horrible to see claims of starvation, suffering. We've seen it before our own eyes. I've consistently voted for humanitarian aid into Gaza. I've felt very strong about that. And we also want to see lasting peace for the people of Israel as well. We have two very hurt groups of people. And the role that I can play in this as Michigan's chief lawmaker is to be connected in to the communities, to get informed about what is going on internationally, and then make decisions accordingly. And that is how I have guided the decisions I have made and the positions that I've held. And right now, I want to see Hamas surrender. I want to see hostages come home, and I want to see us get to lasting peace in the region. And this also comes with the U.S. and Israel continuing to work together to get aid into Gaza, because it's been unacceptable that it hasn't been getting in.
Now on the local, on the Democratic primary side, there hasn't been that many issues that show like huge differences between all the candidates. But one thing that your competition talks about a bit is like, oh, we're not taking any PAC money. You don't seem to have a concern with that. What is your thinking behind that? Because they're trying to line themselves. Obviously, this is a race, right? Mm-hmm. They're just trying to line themselves out differently. I'm just trying to see your thinking on that, right?
Well, it's partly because I have a federal record of supporting campaign finance reform, and I continue to be a transparent lawmaker. I'm certainly in favor and have voted very consistently for comprehensive campaign finance reform. I've continued to call that out. There's a lot of different pieces of legislation. I frankly like the bigger and wider reaches of that. And no, it's look, I've also, worked alongside businesses in our state and in our region to get things done like the CHIPS Act, and just as I've introduced the No Chinese Cars Act. And so, it's all public information, but broadly where we need to go is we do need campaign finance reform that frankly even extends beyond just the corporate PACs.
And I want to talk about that and what that could look like, because I do hear the argument strongly from a lot of people that like, well, this is the system we're in and you have to operate in the system we're in. But what would you like to see as far as campaign finance reform?
I think we need limits and more transparency, particularly with super PACs, and all sorts of groups get involved. And, as a candidate, that's illegal for me to even be really talking about. But it's been a note of frustration, because let's say there's a billionaire who doesn't like me. Well, then he can create.
And there might be.
Yeah, there might be a billionaire.
Turns out, last election cycle, billionaires appear.
Yeah, and they get chainsaws and then they fire a bunch of people. And no, look, these are all, worthy questions. I mean, my campaign is about lowering costs. This is what we've seen hit with the tariffs. I'm the daughter of small business owners. My dad was born here in Detroit on Comstock Street, right outside of Hamtramck. he doesn't want me to tell you how old he is, but I'll share that he's 80 years old and he's still signing up landscaping jobs.
That's amazing.
And he was also a public school teacher in Detroit as well, just working very hard his whole career. And that's the type of thing that motivates me. That's what I also want to champion in the United States Senate. And it's, frankly, I've got an educational background in deep thinking, otherwise known as that great degree in philosophy I got. And look, I want to ask the structural questions about our system. And the best way, too, I can answer that is by being transparent with folks and meeting people where they're at and speaking to what is directly going to impact them. I'm not ashamed of anything in my record. I have voted on my values and I've acted on my values and I've bested expectations for Michigan each and every single time.
So there's been a lot of talk about affordability in politics, right? But I'm curious, how can a U.S. senator affect affordability?
Well, take, for instance, legislation that I just spent the last year drafting called the Unearth America's Future Act. Upwards of 95% of our critical materials are processed and refined in China. These come from critical minerals and rare earth elements that sometimes we source here in the United States of America or in Michigan, and a lot of times they get shipped over to China and then get owned by China and sold back to us. Those price points are then subject to the whim of the Chinese Communist Party. That impacts, in addition to cost-rising tariffs, that impacts our manufacturers and our small businesses and the costs that they then pass down to consumers. So what my bill does is gives us a path to lowering those costs to get folks to process and refine critical minerals here in a place called Michigan. And one of my buddies over in Harper Woods, he's working on a deal on this right now, Eddie Cook, and I've been sitting down with some of these manufacturers who are doing this. And as a government actor, I want to ensure that our federal government is meeting these resource partners where they're at. The other thing is that we need to look at our tax code. The big bad bill that just passed Congress on party lines that was a major giveaway to billionaires and cost increasing to basically everybody else.
Well, including state budgets. That's one thing that I think a lot of the public doesn't understand that I've been digging into is that that there are mechanisms in there that have made it so that the state of Michigan's budget's going to have a large hole blown in it.
100%. I mean, our state is left holding the bag. I've been talking to colleagues in the state legislature, and they're at an impasse, and our schools are going to take the cut. And we know what, for instance, when we invest in child nutrition, those dollars come back to us. I'm talking about a return on spend. Anytime I'm using your taxpayer dollar, I know we have a debt deficit problem in this country. And it's something that anyone who has served in elected office over the last 15 years is responsible for. In terms of how we get out of that, I can't turn around and tell every single taxpayer, I'm going to continue to spend more of your money just to come back and ask for more of it again. Same thing, we did an infrastructure bill. I'm thrilled that we got that infrastructure bill done. But guess what, Jer? We've got to do phase 2 of that infrastructure bill. Our Great Lakes Water Authority will be the first to tell me we've got $1 billion problem with our pipes. Not the sexiest thing, but man, try turning on your faucet and not getting the water that you need.
Well, that's the kind of thing that you need federal support to do. Because
Exactly.
if you tried to raise that money completely locally, it would be backbreaking.
It would.
So, but, I know we have got limited time. I want to make sure to get into some of your favorites. When you come back from Washington, I want some answers, Haley.
Okay.
What do you want? What do you crave? What are places that you really like? And it's okay to favor your district. You're from there. I get it. But I want people to know, okay, what are you into?
You know what always happens by the end of every long legislative period? I have to get back and just get to a Coney Island. I need the salad, I need the pita, I need the Greek dressing.
Oh, so full Coney Island. We're not talking just a hot dog.
No,
we're talking the whole experience.
I'm talking about the flaming cheese. I'm talking I just get this craving, and I know that I can't find it anywhere in the nation's capital. So I've got some, great spots in and around, obviously, the Metro Detroit area. But that craving does emerge. And I try and bring Vernors out too, because, if you have an upset stomach, that's the only thing that's going to fix it. So I try and keep that in the office, but then, the staff gets into it, and then we run out, and then we got to go get more, and, that's always a hunt and all that. And then we keep some baked, our better made chips and all that out in the front. But it's always a good day when I'm breathing Michigan air and connecting with Michiganders. I love this work, but the best part is being able to come home and connect with people, hear what they need, and then bring it back home. Or bring it back, to the legislative home, which is doing and delivering.
For one, I appreciate that you order across the whole menu. Too many people stick to only one thing.
Yeah. And we got to diversify. Actually, one of my conies, the Greek islands, they have a great veggie stir fry of all things. And speaking of which, oddly, this morning I woke up thinking about the Spanish rice and the green beans that they put in that. And I was like, it might be time for some of that again.
You know what? You and I have similar thoughts.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Haley Stevens, thank you so much for your time on Daily Detroit.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of it, and my goal is to have all the candidates on for this important seat at one point or another for thoughtful conversations. Tuesday night is our live stream around the Detroit mayoral primary on YouTube. Be there or be square. Me and Norris will be starting at about 7:45 on air into the night, talking Detroit, taking in the results, but also having fun and engaging you, the community, the live chat, all of that. And a reminder, Saturday afternoon is our big birthday bash and live show at the Old Miami from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Johnny Walker is sponsoring some samples. We're going to have some fun and hope to see you out there. Free admission. Thanks to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Local media needs local support to survive now more than ever. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.